I just turned it back on.
Did it make another file or anything? It's a file.
It's probably gonna make another file. It's recording.
It is. Okay, what I was explaining before, my trusty assistant turned off the camera. No, the camera just turned off. So anyway, what I was explaining is you can right click, you know, on certain words if it's a conflict. I'm trying to see if I can find one. And a lot of times it's like it's or its, and it'll give you the option, and it may do it in here. I remember doing that last week. You can press Shift F10 or right click and it'll give you the different options. If it's like a contraction or something like that and you got it wrong, like your, and your, you can right click on the word, or the auto magic keys will usually have it over here, you know, usually, or it'll have it in the status bar, which is usually right down here. So that's what it's explaining right there. And when you're in HyperKeys, what they're explaining right here is when your cursor is resting on a conflict and you're in HyperKeys, it's waiting for a command. If you're going to type something in there, typing a letter, number, anything like that is going to make it do a command. So it's just explaining right here that you have to push in to insert something if you want to insert it, because the software itself doesn't know that you're wanting to type something in. In HyperKeys, it always thinks that, you know, we're getting going and we're going to do commands from here on out. That's all it knows in the HyperKeys is commands. It doesn't know letters. So if you want to type in letters, then you have to press the N, you know, because even the number keys itself will put in on the Auto Magic is going to put in whatever command or word that's to that number. So you have to be really careful. But just know, and we went over the oops part of it. So if you do something wrong, usually you can push escape or you can push Z in HyperKeys, or Control Z if you're not in HyperKeys, and that's kind of the oops command. All right. So right here it's explaining when you select or reselect a conflict choice, Eclipse is learning grammar. It's not memorizing phrases. So it's learning what you're doing the more you do it, and it's getting smarter the more that you do it. It understands what you're trying to do the more you do it. So inserting is not always a good thing. I'm not saying it's bad, I mean, because sometimes you do need to insert some stuff and that's fine, but the more you do it, the software itself is going to learn what you're doing. In this next little tutorial, they're going to explain to you about unresolved conflicts and how you can change the colors of what you're doing so that you know exactly what you're doing. If you want unresolved conflicts in a certain color, if you want untranslates in a certain color, your fill in the blank fields are a different color. So they're going to explain colors right here.
Let's see how Eclipse gives you total control over your display colors. Display colors. Color selections are not just for expressing your individuality. This example uses one color for translated text, another for text that was typed in, and a third for text that was added by the scopist. These two colors distinguish a conflict that was resolved by the computer and one that was resolved by the user. Let's change the color for form fields. Settings, Display, Color Selections. Form fields are just one of more than 20 items for which you can assign a background and a foreground color. Let's change the background color. You can select from one of many basic colors, or define a custom color, and then add it, select it, and say OK. But you also have the option to display all text in one color. This is a quick way to simplify the appearance of your screen, and it's a very popular feature for those who do real-time writing for the hearing impaired, CART writers.
Okay. Any questions with that? Pretty basic stuff. And really it's just talking about colors and stuff like that. But, usually, when you get your Eclipse, it kind of already does it for you. It'll give you some of the basic colors or whatever. So if you want to change them, the color just doesn't match with what you want it to do, you can change the colors. That's all it's explaining right there. Okay, right here what it's explaining was kind of what I was explaining to you guys a little bit earlier, is that Eclipse only learns to resolve conflicts when you press numbers. So, if you're always, typing over conflicts, then it's not going to learn what you're doing. So you always want to use the software to your advantage. Work smarter, not harder. Let the software start doing work for you so that it gets easier and you're not working as hard. So, and that's what it's kind of explaining right there, is that you press 1 or 2 in your, unresolved conflict, or to resolve a conflict, or to pick a conflict choice. You just go to the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, which is down here, and choose, whichever one you want. The typing over a conflict, Eclipse doesn't learn anything from the correction. So when you insert something, it's not learning anything from what you just did. Okay? Okay, I think this is where we stopped last week, and this is where we'll pick up this week. This is conflicts advice.
Here's an important tip concerning Eclipse Artificial Intelligence. It only learns new rules when you place your cursor on a conflict and pick the correct choice. If instead you just place your cursor on a conflict and just type new to rules when you place your cursor on a conflict and pick the correct choice. If instead you just place your cursor on a conflict and just type new text, Eclipse learns nothing. In other words, Eclipse can learn when you pick a conflict, but not when you type over it. Also, you should make your first conflict choice the more likely one. Then, in the Translate section of your user settings, you'll be able to ask Eclipse to pick the first choice when it otherwise would not know how to resolve a conflict. Sometimes a conflict will occur in an exceptional context, and you'll want to pick a conflict choice but not teach a context rule. If so, just hold down the Shift key and press the conflict choice number. That will take care of the exception without affecting what the artificial intelligence has learned. Much more could be said about conflicts, but this is the subject of a separate in-depth ePower video tutorial that includes a conflicts kit with dictionaries that contain hundreds of entries that have already learned how to resolve beautifully. So this is a great way to take full advantage of Eclipse translation magic.
Did you understand that? It was kind of a little tricky there at the end about switching. Did you understand that? Okay.
Put the most
Eclipse to pick the first.
I'm sorry?
you do the most used conflict.
Eclipse is if you check this box right here, it's gonna pick the one that usually it's gonna pick the first one. So it's gonna know, it kind of knows with the artificial intelligence which one you usually need. So it's gonna pick that one, but if it doesn't, then you go through and change it, whatever. So does that make sense? Okay. So if you check that box, that's what it's gonna do. If not, then it's going to keep it in a conflict, and then you have to go through and then pick each conflict. Okay?
Choice when it otherwise would not know how to resolve a conflict. Sometimes a conflict will occur in an exceptional context, and you'll want to pick a conflict choice but not teach a context rule. If so, just hold down the Shift key and press the conflict choice number. That will take care of the exception without affecting what the artificial intelligence has learned.
Does that make sense? Okay. Does that make sense to you guys? Slick? You got it? Yes. Oh. Okay.
Much more could be said about conflicts, but this is the subject of a separate, in-depth ePower video tutorial that includes a conflicts kit with dictionaries that contain hundreds of entries that have already learned how to resolve beautifully. So this is a great way to take full advantage of Eclipse translation magic.
Okay. Understand that part? And that's where that's what it's explaining right here, was the exception to the way is holding the shift and then the number that you want. It's usually down here in the okay, and that gives you the different choice. Did y'all understand that, right? The holding down the shift, making the different choice without changing it in your main. Okay. All right, and here it's just kind of a little editing thing that you can kind of go through. So I mean, you know, like when we get done tonight, if for some reason you don't understand it, that's why they do these little exercises right here, so that you can go through and kind of, you know, do it yourself. And it gives you examples of how you can do it. And, you know, it's actually pretty neat. So, I mean, take advantage of that stuff, guys. You know, if you don't understand something, go through it, you know, and you don't want to ask in class, and go through it and just, you know.
For example, right there it has yes on the job / on the job I did.
Right here?
Uh-huh. So those two on the jobs, the user set them up
Yeah.
and
So you would
globalize it
do
that way. And say I want
yes.
the first one, so you just hit 1.
Yeah. I did, and then you go to the next.
So this person set up AF as after and of.
Well, I mean, and they do it, you know, because you have AO right here. So
Right,
sometimes
right.
it's just, you know, so it's possible that you could misstroke it. So they set it up as a conflict right there.
Right.
Yeah. So that it just gives them the option. But the more that you choose it, the software is going to start learning what you're choosing there, and then is going to choose,
Right.
you know, choose for you. That makes sense? So, you know, and
I wonder how many conflicts can you set up?
as
Like how
as
many
you want.
words? Like that one was after of, and then if you want to keep adding, I wonder what the
Yeah.
limit is.
I don't know that there is a limit. I mean, I don't know. It might be 9, because I think once you push 1, then it's always going to go back to 1. So you can't do 11 conflicts. But if you're doing 11 conflicts,
No, I'm not doing that.
you may want to get in the auto mechanics class or something, how to do something else. If your writing's that bad that you need 11 conflict resolutions because you write 11 things almost the same. Good question. And I'm just kidding around, guys. So I mean, but no, I mean it'll give you, you know, quite a few. So I mean, even if you do like each, you know, and each might be close, you know, to of. I mean, not really, but I'm just kind of throwing some stuff out. So I mean, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Conflict.
You know, like it's, and it's, you know, so there's 3 right there. You know. But the way that you write, it shouldn't conflict that much. You know, you should be almost writing conflict free. Does that make sense? But there's some stuff, and I even do it, and I'm guilty of doing it. But the way that I do it, the way that I try to do it, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, because sometimes you're going so fast that you're creating conflicts with something else that you don't remember. Like my doing is DOG. Well, that's dog. But I don't hear dog every day. I hear doing almost every day. Somehow, some way, doing is always there. I don't hear dog that much. So my dog is DOG asterisk. Well, every now and then they say dog, and you're just going so fast that you stroke dog. So that's how and why you would maybe want to set up a conflict right there. You know, you don't need it all the time, but I mean, you may. You're going to hear doing way, way more than you're going to hear dog, unless you sit in the dog pound court. Then you might need that, you know. But you know what I'm saying.
So
but
you're-
I've created a conflict, but sometimes it doesn't always work because maybe you're going so fast. I have a conflict-free way of writing it, but sometimes it just doesn't always work if you forget the asterisk. So
why don't you set it up as a conflict, dog or doing?
well, because you're going to have to go through and do doing every time when you're not going to hear dog that much. So most of the time, and you know, the software will learn how you're writing, but eventually, yeah, it's eventually going to learn, you know, but it may not in certain instances, and then you have to choose there and choose there or whatever. So I mean, it's not a bad thing to do, but I just wouldn't do it because I didn't set it up as a conflict. I didn't set it up that way because I try to do conflict-free writing. So you try to do always conflict-free writing. So I'm telling you guys, the asterisk has become, you know, one of my best friends. You know, just because of a lot of the briefs that I've learned to write from stuff that we learn and talk about every day in court. You know, and it's not, you know, and it may have already been a brief for something totally different, but I don't hear, you know, that brief all the time. So I changed it to what I needed to hear every day, and that's how whatever works for you, do it that way. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
Let's see some of the choices that AutoMagic offers for resolving dictionary conflicts. Dictionary conflicts. Eclipse conflict resolution works so well that many users start creating conflicts to improve their translation results and reduce their editing time. Of course, context can be ambiguous, and if Eclipse does pick the wrong choice, AutoMagic will make it easy to correct. So here, if I press 1, that picks the first conflict choice. Here again, I've simulated another incorrect conflict choice, and so I'll press 1 to pick the right choice for meat. Here's an example of using a conflict so that Eclipse can help you with punctuation. The conflict did resolve correctly, and with my cursor now at the end of this sentence, AutoMagic is seeing that I might need to put a question mark. I could press 4 to do that, but AutoMagic is also trying to teach me the hyperkey or speed key. Here's a conflict that involves hyphenation, and I've simulated the need to choose choice 2 to select up to date with hyphens. This is actually 3 conflicts in a row, and my cursor is now on a conflict between the word number and capital NO period if it comes before a number. Eclipse chose the right choice, but if it had not, I could have chosen the choice from the AutoMagic list. Here's a conflict that helps with punctuation. Sometimes I tend to write the comma, sometimes I leave it out, but the conflict anticipates the need for commas or not. Finally, here's a conflict that helps with capitalization. What would happen if I needed to choose choice 2 to capitalize the word street? This entry in the dictionary starts with a command to capitalize the previous word. It capitalized the word state. For each of these conflict entries of various sorts, AutoMagic not only makes it easy to pick the appropriate choice, but it gives you other possibilities as well. Perhaps you need to delete the conflict in a particular spot, or global the steno to mean something else. AutoMagic makes it easy.
Does that make sense? That makes sense to you guys? In there, they were kind of showing some stuff.
Let's see some of the choices. The need to choose choice 2 to select up to date. So trying to teach me the my cursor now at the end of this sentence, AutoMagic is seeing that I might need to put a question mark. I
Okay, all it's explaining right here is that it gives you the option, you know, right here on number 4, but it also tells you what the command is. So you don't have to keep doing it every time. You know, you don't have to keep pressing 4 or whatever. You can keep your hands on the keyboard and it's giving you the command that it is for that. Okay? So that's why it kind of gives you the little commands over here so that you get it to know what it's, you know, what it's doing, so you don't have to take your hands off the keyboard and press, you know, 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's giving you the command over here.
Is that on version 5 or just 6?
It should be on version 5 also.
They are.
It's in HyperKeys.
I've never. Oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah. What a land. Okay, so that's what it's doing right there. Did y'all get that?
Could press 4 to do that, but AutoMagic is also trying to teach me the hyperkey or speed key. Here's a conflict that involves hyphenation, and I've simulated the need to choose choice 2 to select up to date with hyphens. This is actually 3 conflicts in a row, and my cursor is now on a conflict between the word number and capital NO period if it comes before a number. Eclipse chose the right choice, but if it had not, I could have chosen the choice from the AutoMagic list. Here's a conflict that helps with punctuation. Sometimes I tend to write the comma, sometimes I leave it out, but the conflict anticipates the need for commas or not. Finally, here's a conflict that helps.
Did y'all understand that? That's pretty neat also that AutoMagic does is, you know, it knows like yes, no, you know, most of those, that comes with a comma after it. You know, and it doesn't always, but sometimes it does. So it always gives you, you know, pretty much that option. And then right here, it doesn't mean if it, did he state the street? Well, maybe you didn't put the, or it's stacked, maybe with street on the T. Well, it didn't pick it up. So it doesn't know whether you're saying state the street where it's stacked, it didn't pick it up, or if it's state street. So here it's giving you the option where it capitalized it, it knows that it goes together, and street is going to be capitalized too. So it knows that it's a specific street. So you push number 2, and it's going to automatically capitalize state because it thinks that you've given it the command that it is a specific street. So it's going to capitalize that and capitalize street. So you don't have to go in here, come back over here, put your cursor here, type in, capital S, delete the thing, come back over here and do the same thing with street. It's already knowing kind of what it needs to do. So it's giving you that option.
So then let's say you keep going after you write that answer, you're on break or something, and they mention the state street again. Will automatically capitalize state street if you choose number 2.
And it may. It may. Or it's going to give you this option again.
Okay.
Because it's not going to know sometimes if you're always wanting to do that. But if you know that you're going to be talking about a murder that happened on State Street. Well, then you know that you're going to want to go through and global that State Street to where it's going to come up all the time. So now it's going to know in the magic keys, it's going to have over here State Street. So say you put S-T-A-I-L-T, Stelt Street, Stelt Street. Well, it's going to say, you know what? You've already put State Street in there. Is it possible that you misstroked it and you mean State Street? So it's already going to know. Or they did mention Stelt Street and it's S-T-A-I-L-T, you know, or something like that, or S-T-A-L-T-E, Stelt Street, or I don't know, whatever. I'm just giving you kind of different options of what it may be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That makes sense to you guys? On this AutoMagic key right here?
So what's being shown on the left-hand column is whatever globals we set up. In addition to that, Eclipse is learning and putting its options in there as well.
So, you know, and it may mean, you know, you may have misstroked it. It may, see, and it's always showing different options of what it thinks maybe you thought you tried to stroke. Maybe, you know, you drug the S in there and it was supposed to be treat. Or treat is something. So, it may give you the option of treat is, because maybe you stacked in, you know, right here, you stacked in treat and the S. Treat is good. Well, up here you had the treat is good, but you put street. Well, all it knows is what you stroke. So it's going to put there street because that's what you stroked, and it's a word. So it's going to put what you put there, but it's going to give you options over here of, well, maybe did you mean this? Did you stack the S with treat and meant, you know, treat is or is treat? You know, so it's going to give you different options a lot of times. You know, if you went in here and corrected it, you know, it's going to start giving you that option. You know, because it's going to remember, you know what, you did stroke treat. And, you know, you stacked it with something else. So next time it's going to know, well, did you mean street? Or are you having a terrible day and you keep stacking treat with S? Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Can I say something? I don't know if everybody knows this, but like if you want to capitalize something and you're on hyperkeys, if you just do the A, it'll capitalize it.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Did y'all hear that?
Yeah.
Y'all know that already? Okay.
Like,
And it will, and if you keep pushing A,
it capitalizes.
yeah, or shift A will capitalize the whole thing.
Is there a command to add a comma at the end of a word?
At the end of a word,
Just do the comma. On hyperkeys, just do the comma.
what it's going to do is it's going to put the comma
Put it
before.
before, yeah.
Yeah.
So could you do the word afterwards and just do it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just do that.
Did that work?
Yeah, it's just kind of weird since everything's usually, it puts it at the end.